I wanted to do an 8.8 video, but I just didn't have it in me to work on it. I broke the lock pin on the cross shaft. Waiting on a kit to come in that will allow me to fix that. So I didn't have it in me to do much more than 8.8. So here's me introducing the Dana 30 build for the Jeep. So here's my Dana 30 axle build, and I've talked a lot about my 8.8, and I've talked very little about what I'm doing to the front. So this is it. Let me walk you through it very briefly because it is a much more simple build. I am simply putting together some new parts onto this Dana 30 axle. This Dana 30 came out of a Cherokee. I bought the axle set from a guy who was going 1 tons, and he had 488s installed in his front and rear axle. I bought the set because at the time I had a Cherokee and I wanted a 488 rear end. I already had a front end and he had one, so I just went ahead and bought the front too, just in case I ever needed it. And lo and behold, it's been sitting in my garage for about 6 or 7 years at least, and now I can put it to use. So there's a few things you probably noticed. I've got some suspension work here. What I haven't shown you is that these are Chromoly Axle shafts. These are 10 factory Chromoly Axle shafts that I've just put in there. There's a few things I'm doing to them. Number one, you can see there's no dust shield in there, if you can see that, if there's enough light. I'm putting some 10 factory axle tube seals into this axle, and I'm putting new unit bearings on the axle. Now when you're doing the unit bearings, here's a tip. Depending on what you want, all Dana 30, at least later model Dana 30 unit bearings are the same as far as being able to fit and work. What's different is the height of them from top to bottom, from mounting surface to the back side of the of where they fit into the knuckle. The difference is that one's made for a composite rotor and one is made for a cast iron rotor, cast iron being the preferable one from a performance standpoint. However, the earlier TJs and XJs and Dana 30 axle users, YJs I think, used a composite rotor and it changed the height. That's why if you watch my power stop brake install video, you'll see that I had to go find new rotors because there's a difference. I bought the power stop brake kit for a composite rotor and I believe it was composite rotor. No, yeah, I bought the kit for a composite rotor, but my axle was a cast iron axle. Cast iron, it was set up for cast iron rotors. So the hat was too tall on them and caused it to rub. Since I have those power stop rotors still, then I went ahead and got the unit bearings for a composite to go in here, and that's what will be in here. That way I can use those rotors. I took these axle shafts off a long time ago to use in another Jeep, and so I still got to get some new bolts and a new axle nut to go on them before I can put the unit bearings in for good. That's the simple stuff. The less simple stuff is designing this suspension. So you can see I've got some long arms built, halfway built here, and they're way too long. They're 36 inches long. They were built for a crawler project I had a long time ago that I never used them on. And they have a trail joint up here, a trail gear trail joint, and it's got a very large heim joint on the other side. So I need these to now, I went out and measured on my old Jeep. I need these to be 31 inches long, and so I have a mark here at 31 inches where I'll have to cut, weld a new bung, and then the mounting hole will be about right here, and that'll give them the right length. Another thing I've got to do is measure out. Nice. Is measure out the upper arms, which I'm using Barnes long arm brackets that they have on their website to build these with. You can see how these will mount. Now, one thing I have to do is figure out how far up the arm it needs to mount to clear everything. I'm going to have to cut a bracket off of my Jeep. But you can see this bracket can be up or down, and that will change the geometry of the arm. All I've got to do is get up back under my Jeep and measure from the same mounting point, which is approximately right here, to here. And if I get that measurement correct, then that will tell me how far up and down this needs to go to maintain that distance. That'll tell me where I need to mount this with the lift I have on it now. Understand I'm going to go up a couple inches on the lift, so I'll have to fudge the numbers a little bit to make that work. These are adjustable and these will be adjustable, so I can always adjust out if it's a little bit off. So I'll be working on that, and I'll show y'all how to do that in a later video. The upper arms I didn't make. The upper arms I bought with rubber bushings. My only other concern is that you really want rubber on one side of the long arms. It creates a cushion on your suspension when you're going over bumps, more so than these hard mounted joints. So I may, I'm not sure, but I may swap out the heim joint, the large heim joint, with a large bushing. It's already got 4/88 in it. It is an open axle. I do want to put a lunchbox locker in it, but I'll probably have it under the Jeep long before I do that. Gears look good. I have them out. I just slid these axle shafts in. I'm fixing to slide one back out, and I'm going to try to fit one of these axle tube seals. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at these axle tube seals in general. So these axle tube seals are for the outside, and they're the dust shields. These will not necessarily prevent any fluid from escaping your differential. That's not what they're made for. They're made just to hold the dust out, to replace the little plastic dust shield that's used on the Dana 30s. These are pretty beefy. I got these off of Amazon warehouse deals for $25, I think. Maybe it was $20, maybe it was $19. Either way, it was a really good deal. I think it was $19. But the seal that keeps the fluid from going out of the axle is actually on the inside right here that you'd have to replace if you were losing differential fluid out the axles. But this is a dust shield. You can see it's greasable. That way this rubber stays pliable. It looks like it's rebuildable, I guess. You can put new seals within this one. All right, there is no easy way. I can tell this thing just doesn't just pop in. It pushes in pretty tight. And so you just got to work it one rib at a time until it goes all the way in there. All right, so that worked actually pretty easily. I still got another turn or two to go to get this side flush. But you can see what I did is took two very large C-clamps, and these are my welding clamps, and I just clamped down on both sides, slowly working each side until it just all popped in. Pretty easy, actually. Let me finish this side up with the last few turns to get that flush, and we'll put the axle shaft back in. And there you have it, folks. 10 factory shafts and seals kind of installed. But you saw how easy that slid in because I had that seal there to guide it. Otherwise, the axle is going to be doing this number, and it's going to be hard to get past the inner axle seal. And that's how people typically will knock out their inner axle seal and cause it to leak. So simple as that. I need my 3 bolts to go back here. This thing may have came with bolts. I guess I should check. But I need my 3 bolts to lock that into place. I need my axle nut, my pin, and that side axle shaft will be in and done. Nice. That is nice. One step closer on the 30, guys. Hopefully that gives you a good idea what I'm doing with the Dana 30. So if you want to see more of that build, then please hit the like button and subscribe. I will definitely be, like I said, adding a lunchbox locker and setting up that suspension. And that will be my Dana 30 that will match the 8.8 that's going in the rear. Those are already 488 gears, like I said, and that should be a very quick build. All I gotta do is weld up those brackets after I measure for the distance, and then slap the lunchbox locker in. I still gotta buy the lunchbox locker. If anyone has any opinions, please let me know, because I'm going back and forth between Spartan locker and it is going to be a lunchbox locker. I know I've had an ARB before, and those work really good. I've had a Detroit in the rear before. They're good lockers. I had a True Track in the rear. It's also a good locker. Or that's not a locker, it's limited slip, but it's still a good traction control device. I know kind of where I'm at from a budget standpoint, and again, this is going to be a budget build anyway. It always is. All my builds are budget builds. But if anyone has an opinion, let me know what you think I should do. I'm kind of leaning towards Spartan lockers. Aussie lockers, I'm not even sure if they're still on the market. I've heard good things about them. It's the same design. Same with a Lockrite. Lockrites are a little more expensive. Same design. Hell, I don't know. I mean, I've heard lots of good things. I know that it's going to ratchet. I know it's going to make noise, but that's not going to bother me. I've had them before, so I kind of know what to expect. But guys, thanks for watching. And if you have any more suggestions on what I should do with the Jeep, let me know. Thanks and have a great day.